Once again, good morning, everybody. Welcome to today's session. My name is Christus, and I'm going to be the presenter for this session. Just wanted to cover a couple of things before we get started. The session is going to be for about an hour. Feel free to post your questions in the chat. We'll try to address as many as of those towards the end of the session. So if I miss any of the questions, I will make sure that it is answered through an email. And lastly, the webinar is being recorded, and the link to the recording and the PDF of the presentation will be made available to you in the next few days. So we will send over the link for the recording and the PDF of the webinar. So let's get started. So before we get started with today's session, I just wanted to show you the series of sessions that will be conducted in the upcoming dates. So let me allow you a couple of minutes to take a look at the session topics and dates so that you can be ready and you can mark it in your calendar. So I'll just allow you a couple of minutes. All right, so with no further delay, let me start today's session about the first session about password vaulting and automatic discovery of passwords in Password Manager Pro. And this is going to be our today's agenda. So starting with how do you add resources or passwords into Password Manager Pro, and how do you customize them after they are being added inside Password Manager Pro, and what are the different methods that we have in Password Manager Pro in order to group your resources together. What are the easiest ways to have them grouped together for doing bulk operations within the product, and how do you securely share the passwords that you have added in Password Manager Pro to the other users in your organization, and you have privileged passwords that you don't want to reveal it directly to your end users. So how do you control the access of your privileged passwords is what we are going to see today during the session. So let's start with the first topic in our agenda. So before I just jump into that topic, what does the term a resource mean in Password Manager Pro? What exactly the resource means? So we call resource password. So what exactly the resource mean in Password Manager Pro? So an individual container that contains user accounts or passwords within it is called a resource in Password Manager Pro. So I will give you a couple of examples. You might have Windows servers across your networks, and also you have Windows desktops, laptops, and you have Linux servers, and also you have Microsoft SQL databases, MySQL databases, PostgreSQL databases, switches, routers, and whatnot. Too many devices, and each and every device will be associated with an individual user account and a password. So a Windows server will have its own local account and password. A Windows laptop will have its own local account and password. The same way you will have your Active Directory, which will hold all your privileged accounts like domain administrator accounts, service accounts, scheduled task accounts. And when you take databases, it has its own local accounts like SA accounts, root accounts in your Linux. So these endpoints, each and every individual container, we call it as a resource in Password Manager Pro. So how do you get them into the product? How do you add these resources into Password Manager Pro is what we are going to see in the first topic today, which is resource addition and management. So starting with the manual method of creating the resources in Password Manager Pro, or importing them from a CSV file in a bulk. So you have hundreds and hundreds of resources that you want to add it inside Password Manager Pro. You can easily add them to a CSV file and just do a bulk import of all the resources inside the product. And also we have an option to import the KeePass file. So you take if you're already using KeePass in your organization, you can just export all the data out of KeePass in that format that application provides you. It is a KDBX format, and we support the same format that you can directly import it into Password Manager Pro. And let's see how we can do it in the product right now, just directly going into Password Manager Pro. And this is the user interface of the product Password Manager Pro, and how we get the resources into the product manually. So the first method is to add them manually by hand. So you have to type the resources. So let's say you're adding a Linux resource, you will provide a host name of the resource, say CentOS 234, 2345, and I will just provide an IP address for it. And I will select the type of resource that I want. So let's say I'm adding an HP ILO device. I'll fill in other fields, the description, department, resource, URL, all this information. When I say save and proceed, I can just enter the user account and passwords associated with that particular device. And then say save and proceed. That gets automatically added as a resource in Password Manager Pro with the password I just added. So this is the manual method of adding the resource into Password Manager Pro. So what are the other methods that we have apart from the manual method of adding? Because when you have hundreds and hundreds of resources, it is going to be a really hectic task to have them onboarded inside the product. So it is not easy to have them added one by one into Password Manager Pro. So you can import them directly in a bulk from a CSV file, and I'm going to show you how that can be done. So we have an option which says import from file in Password Manager Pro, and I have a file that I can just browse it through my desktop, open it, and the next screen provides the fields in the CSV file. So right now I just have 4 fields, like 4 rows in the CSV file. Let me quickly open the CSV file and show you that this is the file I'm trying to import, which contains 4 fields. So you can just populate it with the other fields you want. So going back to Password Manager Pro to the import section, you can add the description, department, all that in the CSV file. So we have resource, like we have the same resource which has 2 accounts, and we have another resource which again has 2 accounts, and we have resource 3 and resource 4 which has 1 account each. I have 4 fields, so I'm going to populate this in Password Manager Pro right now. Going back to the product, resource name, and I will select the user account name, password, and what type of resource it is. I say finish. Password Manager Pro has imported the resources right into the product. A little bit of refresh is required to just take a look at the resources that you have imported. So each and every resource will have its own accounts that you just added from a CSV file. So this is how you import it in a bulk. So right now I just have 3 resources I have added. In future, you can have as many as resources put into a CSV file and do the bulk import into the product. The second option that we have, and the third option, I'm sorry. So we have in Password Manager Pro is import from KeePass. I told you earlier, the file that you take out from a KeePass application. So I have an example file that we can use, and I have a master password for this file. I'll select it and import. So this would now read the database file that was imported, and it just brings all the data. And as you can see, so now it has imported all the KeePass data into Password Manager Pro. So these are the methods how you manually add resources into Password Manager Pro, either manually or a CSV file or a KeePass import. The second topic of adding the resource, which is very important, which is very important, is the automatic discovery of resources and endpoints spread across your infrastructure. So first, let's talk about the Windows endpoints, that is Windows servers that are present in your organization. How do you get them onboarded inside Password Manager Pro? So we have 2 methods. The first method we are going to see right now, which is the discover resources. So it's going to be very easy. All you need to do is select the domain controller that you want to add the resources from. That is the computer objects that you want to add it from Active Directory. Select the domain name from the drop-down, the domain controller details. You can either store a user account and password within Password Manager Pro and make use of it. This would be a privileged account that would connect to your domain to fetch the computer objects from your domain. Or you can also manually type in the details of the account. So now I'm going to type it manually in administrator, and the password of administrator that I'm going to enter to fetch the complete information from my Active Directory. So before that, I can also set up a synchronization interval. So if you add a new Windows server or a laptop to a OU that's already been imported into Password Manager Pro, based on this synchronization interval, Password Manager Pro will scan your Active Directory and fetch the new computer automatically. So that is why you set a synchronization interval. You can set it for 1 day or hour based on your requirement. Or if you want to just type a few computers that you want to import, provide the host name right here in this field, or a group or OU, just provide it here in a comma separated format is all we need. Password Manager Pro will be able to reach out to the computers and bring all the information right into the product. Or just fetch groups and OUs, which would display the complete groups and OUs present in your Active Directory. So now I'm going to import a OU, which is called computers, from my Active Directory, and did an import. Now, during this process, during the import process, what Password Manager Pro actually does in the background is that it first connects to your Active Directory, right? So that is where you have the computer object details. So it connects to your Active Directory, fetches all the informations of the computer, that is the DNS name of the computer, and it's adding into the Password Manager Pro web console. The second step, what it does is it connects to each and every computers and scans for the local account. So each and every domain member will have a local account. So Password Manager Pro will go one step further, scan the computers and fetch the local accounts on them. And it'll go one step further again and find the service accounts associated on those endpoints on the computer members. It will find the service accounts, and those will be also automatically discovered right into Password Manager Pro, and it will be added inside the resources tab. So inside the OU that we just imported, we have two computers, and when you open one computer, it shows all the local account that just added into Password Manager Pro, as well as if you see here, you can see the service accounts being imported automatically. So if you click on this, it will show you which services using this particular account called Gerald. And I have another account called Administrator, which is being used on all these services on this particular server. So this is all done automatically during the Windows scan by Password Manager Pro. So discovers the computer, discovers the local account, scans the computers for service accounts as well. So that's how Password Manager Pro adds accounts, discovers accounts automatically on your Windows endpoints. Now, for this mechanism, this is called an agentless mechanism in Password Manager Pro, where Password Manager Pro can reach out to the endpoints through some ports. So we use WMA connectivity, and you have to have all these ports open for it to communicate with those devices to fetch the information. Apart from this, what we have in Password Manager Pro, when you have this ports restricted, or if it's behind a firewall, or it's in a DMZ, or you have it in a work group, it is not in a domain. One of the options we have in Password Manager Pro is, first thing is, if you have the list of computers and local accounts, you can import it from a CSV file. The second option is, again, an automatic method using the Password Manager Pro agents we have. So I'm going to demonstrate how an agent works in Password Manager Pro. So I have a computer connected here, which is a workgroup computer with a name called PMP-Win10 temp. And so if you see here, I don't have any service called PMP, right? So now I go back here, I log in as the same user and do this. So now I have open PMP in the computer called PMP-Win10 temp. I'm going to go to the admin tab. I'm going to look for the Windows agent and download the agent right into the folder called PMP agent, the C drive. So now I have it here. I'll go to the folder and I'll extract the agent right here. I have the agent here. I'll open it through a command prompt. Right, so I have command prompt. I will say cd, and I'll install the agent now, which would be using agent installer.exe start. So I have installed the agent now on this computer, and I refresh the services console. You can see a PMP agent that's running on this box. Now going back to the PMP web client, I do a refresh on the resources, and you can see the resources added by the agent. So this is another way of automatic discovery into Password Manager Pro through the Password Manager Pro agents. So when I click on the resource, you can also find the local accounts on them. So I have around 12 local accounts on this box, which gets automatically imported into Password Manager Pro using the agents. The next step is just go ahead and update the password from Password Manager Pro. So it resets the password through the agent. So when I say you don't want to have any ports open for the agent communication, let me explain you how this communication actually works, or how the agent is able to populate Password Manager Pro with all these local accounts and how the password reset actually works. So we call this as a one-way agent in Password Manager Pro. Here we have the Password Manager Pro server is the server where you have Password Manager Pro installed, and the endpoints are your workgroup computers or the DMZ computers. So you deploy the agents on all the computers that you have. The moment you deploy the agent starts communicating to Password Manager Pro server, and the server doesn't communicate to the agent. So you don't want to have any ports open from the server to the target endpoints. But there's one port, inbound port to the Password Manager Pro server that should be open, which is nothing but the web server port. So this instance runs on 7373. The default port of Password Manager Pro is 7272, and this can be modified anytime to any HTTPS port, and that port has to be open inbound to Password Manager Pro. In other words, in simple terms, from the agent server, you should be able to access Password Manager Pro web client for the agent to communicate. So that's how easy it is to automatically discover all your Windows endpoints right into Password Manager Pro. So going to the next topic in our session today, which is the other devices. So we saw about Windows, how you can scan your complete network of all your Windows accounts, local accounts, service accounts, app pool accounts, schedule task accounts, how you get them onboarded into Password Manager Pro. So what are the other devices you have in the network, and how to get them added inside the product? So we have network devices, ESXi servers, Linux. Also, Linux has agent lists and agents as like Windows. So when I first let me complete Linux, and we'll then go to network devices and ESXi servers. So going back to the discovery section, so we saw Windows. Next is the network devices we are going to do, and next we are going to do Linux, and we are going to provide a host. I have only one server, so you can actually provide an IP address range to scan the complete network to find out the Linux server. So now I provide only the host name or IP address right here, and I have one box which I'm going to try to import into Password Manager Pro, which is CentOS 6, and I add it here. I do a discovery, and I say proceed. The discovery process is started, and you can see it is in progress. So let's wait for it to complete the process. Now it's just communicating with that particular device, finds it from the network, and so it's running. All right, so it is added, and it says it's a failure. All right, I'm so sorry. I have used the wrong name. Yep, that's failing because of a wrong name. It's not able to find that. I'm going to provide the correct name now. Say proceed. Okay, so it says it's a success. And I go to the PMP CentOS 6. I have the resource, and I'll add all the discovered resources into the resources tab. Right, now I'm done. So here I just provided the host name of the server with which Password Manager Pro was able to identify the Linux box and add it. So you can run a scan on your complete network to bring all the Linux boxes into Password Manager Pro. So you can see it says added from resource discovery. But when I get into the resource, it doesn't hold any accounts to it because we have not provided any privileged credentials for it to connect to the box to fetch the accounts yet. So as we did for Windows, we provided a privileged account. It was able to reach the computer and fetch the information. For Linux, we have yet to provide a privileged account or root account in order to scan the data. So I'm going to add a root account manually into Password Manager Pro. And so now this is the privileged account I'm going to provide for this Linux resource, and I'll save. So now let's say you have 20 Linux servers which all holds the same root account and password. The easiest thing that you can do is just add it to one box and you copy it, more actions, to the other resources. Select the other 20 resources and save. So this root account gets automatically added on to all the other resources. Now configure the password reset. For this particular box, you can do it right from here so that it is able to, you're now creating a communication mechanism from Password Manager Pro to the target using this root account. So you can either do it on an individual resource. Once again, resource actions, configure remote password reset, and over here you have to select the root account and root account. I'm going to cancel it. I'm not going to save it because I'm going to show you how to do it in a bulk. So you can select multiple resources that you have, resource actions, configure remote password reset. So here again, you select Linux and select the communication mechanism. So I'm going to select the root account and save. So now we have provided a account to communicate to the Linux server to fetch all the other accounts. Now I'm going to just click on discover accounts, which is now connecting using this root account to the Linux server and fetches all the other accounts present on all the Linux servers. So now it is only for doing for one Linux resource. Again, a refresh is required. So now you can see the accounts being populated. So I have 25 local accounts on this Linux box. So if you want to do this discovery in a bulk, again, you can select the required Linux source and resource actions, discover accounts, which will also discover the accounts. The only thing is, the first time you have to provide a privileged account for it to communicate to the device to fetch the other accounts. So this is the same mechanism followed even for the network devices. To identify the network devices, the one additional thing that you have to do is, along with the IP address range or host name or IP address, you have to provide an SNMP profile. So you have to create an SNMP profile with the read and write community. You have to create it so that Password Manager Pro will identify the device type, the model type. So you will have too many network devices with different models. Cisco, Aruba, Blue Coat, you have different devices. So Password Manager Pro should identify what type of device it is, right? So you provide a SNMP profile. You can create multiple SNMP profiles and select them and do a discovery as well. So once it is discovered, again, only the empty container, empty resource, a network device will be added right here in Password Manager Pro. And you have to provide a privileged account to fetch all the other accounts present inside the same network device. So that's how you discover the network device. And next is the ESXi servers. Here you have to provide an IP address range, or you can also provide individual IP address, and you have to specify a root account. So now this is about the ESXi servers and not the VMs. So ESXi server that hosts your VMs, you can automatically import them. For this, you have to provide a root account to identify if it's an ESXi server and fetch the other account information automatically into Password Manager Pro. So that's how it does an automatic discovery on all these device types in Password Manager Pro. And as like we saw for Windows, we also have an agent for Linux as well. So I go back to the admin tab. You have Windows agent, we have Linux agent. So you have to just download the Linux agent, deploy it on a Linux endpoint or a server. So the moment you deploy it, the agent populates Password Manager Pro with all the local accounts, and you start managing the password. It functions the same way as the Windows agents. And we also have Windows domain agent. So you will have a question, what is the difference? You have Windows agent, Windows domain agent. Windows agent are purely for local accounts that are present in your domain member or a work group, or you have a server behind a firewall, DMZ, only for local accounts. Windows domain agent is purely for your domain controllers alone. So you have to deploy the domain agent only on your domain controller to manage the domain accounts, not the end user accounts, only the privileged domain accounts you will have to manage. So the next topic that we have in today's session is customization of resources. How do you customize it? So Password Manager Pro is a product. So we have a few basic functionalities that is inbuilt within the product that you can make use of it. And also you can customize the product to the core based on your requirement, right? So we have a separate section right here called customization. The first thing that we'll start is from the last one, which is the resource types. So these are the list of resource types. So let me turn it off and I'll just explain it when I turn it on. Right, so now these are the resource types. So which would be listed right here when you add a resource manually in Password Manager Pro. So these are the complete list of resource types. Password Manager Pro comes bundled with a few default resource type that you can make use of it, which will have an icon for it. To the resource types. So which will have an icon for each and every resource type that you can see. So IAM has kind of an IAM icon, and you have Google Apps and like a Google symbol. So these are the default resource types. Along with this, you can also create your own custom resource type to maintain it as a vault, a secure vault. You can create the resource type to easily identify what device it is or what website it is. If you're going to add a website passwords, you can create your own custom resource type as many as you want in Password Manager Pro. Now, when you add a resource, it lists down completely the lot of resources that we have. So when you go to the drop down, you have to just search for the resource that you have or you want. So if you are not bothered about any other resource type which you don't have and which you don't want to add in Password Manager Pro, we have an option here called resource type filter, where now you can add what resources that you want to be listed and saved. So only those resource types will be listed down right here. So it'll make things easier. When you add a resource, just select the required ones from the drop down, save and proceed. That's it. So you don't want to see the complete list of devices or resource types that are in Password Manager Pro. And the resource type section also provides you an option to edit the resource type. You can select or unselect the required fields. So these are the default fields for AWS IAM resource type: group name, description, department, URL, and all this stuff you have. And if you don't want any of this terminology that we have provided by default in the product, you can create your own fields as well in Password Manager Pro using the resource and account additional fields. So resource additional fields, I have created one called tier, and account additional fields, I have created one called level. So when I go back to resources and I click on add resource, you can find the field here, which is the additional field. Since it's a comma separated value, it's a combo box, you can select and add. And also, when you add an account, the new field appears. So you can uncheck all the other fields that you don't want and have only the field that you have created. This will be really helpful for you to search for a particular resource that you're looking for based on the type or based on the tier. And you can choose which column that you want it to be displayed using the column chooser option that we have in Password Manager Pro. So this will make things easier for you to identify an exact resource. So we have search in multiple places. So we have a search right here that you can search based on the columns, or you can do a global search right here, and you can also use your additional field that you created to list down the complete resources which has been created using the additional field. So that's how you create additional fields. Let's go ahead to the next section where you will see the real benefits of the additional fields. So which is nothing but the resource groups. How do you create resource groups in Password Manager Pro? How do you put them into a folder like this? So you have a separate section here called Groups in Password Manager Pro. There are two types of groups that you can create in Password Manager Pro that you have to remember. One is dynamic group, other one is a static group. So what does it mean? A dynamic group is you can specify a criteria. So if you're looking for an individual value, so for example, let's say you have 5 accounts present in a resource, you're least bothered about the 4 accounts and you want just one account to be added to the group, create a criteria. It's very easy to create a criteria. So let's say you have administrator account that is present across all your Windows resources. Just say local admin accounts or local root accounts, whatever you want, a description that you can understand what it is later. Under resource type equals Windows. So this runs the first search. So this is the resources that I have with a resource type called Windows, which I used for the fetching the information and the criteria. And I have another one. I want just the administrator account, which is present in 2 boxes here. So I add another criteria, which says user account equals administrator. So now it just fetches only the administrator account and adds it to the group. I have space and let's do a search. And here we go. So we have the administrator account that's added inside this group in Password Manager Pro. So this is a dynamic group. Tomorrow, based on the synchronization schedule, or you deploy agent on a new server, on a workgroup server, or you manually add a new resource with an administrator account, this group gets automatically populated in Password Manager Pro. So that's why it's called a dynamic group. Now you can see the benefits of the additional field. Even the additional field can be used to create a criteria. So when you import a CSV file, you create an additional field and add all the values. You segregate the resources based on the values and just provide only one criteria based on the additional field, which would filter down the complete resources that you're looking for. Just one criteria, you can create it, which will be more easy for you using the additional fields, which is the resource and account additional fields. So the next group is a static group that you have to create it by hand, and you have to populate it with the new resources. So I'm going to create one called new group. And I'll say save and proceed. Here I have to select the resources I want to put it inside this group. So what are the resources I want? This is a static group. You want to populate it in future, you have to come back here, edit the resource group and add the new resource to it. It doesn't get automatically populated. Right, so that's the two types of grouping in Password Manager Pro, which is the dynamic group and the static resource groups. And what are the benefits of resource groups? So you have a folder structure created in Password Manager Pro using the bulk operation. You have created a folder structure, and you can reset the passwords in one single shot using the resource groups in Password Manager Pro, as well as you can schedule an account discovery in Password Manager Pro. So if there are new accounts that you get added to all your network devices or Linux resources, you have them grouped together, and we have an option here called periodic account discovery, which discovers the accounts automatically based on the schedule that you have set. So you can do it once daily or monthly, totally based on your requirement. You can schedule it. Password Manager Pro will scan the particular group on the devices and fetch the local accounts automatically. And also the benefits of group is you can periodically export the password as well as an encrypted file to a file location. So due to disaster, or if you have a requirement that you want the passwords out of the product, you can have it exported on a schedule basis, as well as you can specify how many files you want to retain. So you don't want to fill up too many spaces on the drive. So you can specify how many files you want in Password Manager Pro to do the export on the schedule basis. So you can update information, and we have too many bulk configurations that you can do it on the resource group section in Password Manager. And before I'm going to go inside this section, I missed another thing when we saw a slide called automatic discovery which is using the REST API. So we saw discovery of devices, right? So we saw Windows, endpoint servers, workgroups using agents. We saw Linux, we saw network devices, ESXi servers, and also we saw a manual method of importing the resources, right, using the CSV file, the KDBX file, as well as adding manually. So apart from this, what we provide you in Password Manager Pro, another easiest way to onboard resources inside the product is using the RESTful API in Password Manager Pro. So I have a REST client that is installed in my Firefox to demonstrate this, and I have a URL, a post URL that I have specified, and I have a hot token which is created for an API user in Password Manager Pro, and I'm going to make the owner as the admin that I have logged in, which is the PWD admin account. That's right here, which we are actually logged in right now. The account name is called PWD admin. Go back here, and that is going to be the owner, and I'm going to import this resource using the input data that I have provided here. So I'm going to send, and it says it's successful. Now I go back to Password Manager Pro, and I look for the resource that I just made using the API, and this is the one, test1510 with a user account and password, which I have specified it in the input data, and it gives us a clear description that it's being added by the API user. So this is another automated way of adding the resources right into Password Manager Pro. There are various functions that you can perform using the API, which you will see in the future sessions, the upcoming sessions of the workshop, the series that we have. So now directly jumping into the session where we left, and if you have any additional questions around this API, how do you get it onboarded at Apple, feel free to drop me an email. All right, so ownership concept and secure sharing of resources and resource groups, and with different permission levels, how you can share the resource or resource groups that you have created. So the first and foremost thing that you have to understand in Password Manager Pro is the ownership concept. Okay? So because this product can be used in an organization by multiple departments, not only a single department. It can be used on in a multiple department and a multiple department infrastructure. Right? So you will have admins on each and every department. Like you have Windows admins, database administrators, Linux admins, security administrators. So whatever passwords a Windows admin adds, it does not need to be shared to a Linux admin. The same way, whatever Linux admin adds, it is not to be required to share to a Windows admin, right? So in Password Manager Pro, any administrator user who adds passwords inside the web client, inside Password Manager Pro database, he will be the owner of it. This user should decide to whom he has to share the password. Only based on the sharing, the password will be available to anybody else in the product. So what are the options we have in sharing? So you can share it on a single account level. So let me go to this original box that we just discovered from the domain. I can share administrator accounts on this particular box. I can say share with users or share with user groups, or I can share the complete resources, that is this one. So with all these accounts, I can share it with the user or a user group. User group is nothing but his department or his team, or you can create multiple teams to whom the resource should be exactly shared. That's user group. Share with users, share with user groups. And again, you have made a group of all the administrator accounts or root accounts or any important account using a criteria or static, share with users or share with user groups. So any group you click, you will have the option share with users or share with user groups. And you have 3 access levels right here: view, modify, and full access. So it's available in all the areas. So what this exactly means is that you share a resource with a view permission to a user or a user group. That user will be able to log into Password Manager Pro and just see the password. I'm going to show you how it works. So I have imported this computer's PMP cluster, and I'm going to share it with a user called a PWD user Who's the technician? Oh, I'm sharing it with the user group. Sorry, share with users. I just have one user. Share it with this user with grant and view permission. So now I've shared it with the view permission. I log in as the user right here inside my Mozilla Firefox browser, and I refresh. These are the resources that are shared to me. So when I click on it, I'll be able to see the passwords that are actually shared to me. So there is one setting where you can completely hide the password from the user. So now it is actually hidden. The setting is turned on. So the user will not be able to retrieve the password at all. So you can use this button to automatically launch remote sessions right from Password Manager Pro as well. So this you will be seeing it in a different session in the upcoming days. So let me just go ahead and turn off the setting right now. Okay, this is the administrator login. And I have logged in as a normal administrator, which we call it as password administrator, who has the ability to just add passwords and share it to the required set of users. So now going back as the normal user to whom we have shared it with a view permission, I click on the resource and wrong one. So I see the passwords in plain text. I have to provide a reason why I need the password for, so that it gets audited. So now that's the password that I can see it in a plain text. So that's the view permission that we have in Password Manager Pro. And going back as the resource owner to the same group that we just shared. And I share it with the user. Now I'm going to change it to the modify access. So I change it and provide modify access. So what additional privilege that it provides me is that we'll refresh. The additional privilege that it provides me is that it allows me to change the password. So I can see the password as well as I can change the password. So that's the modify privilege. This is the difference between the view and modify. It's very simple. You see the password or you modify it. And the third option is very important. You might have multiple administrators in your organization, right? Multiple administrators on the same team. So it is not required for all the administrators to add the same set of resources into Password Manager Pro using their own login. So even Password Manager Pro doesn't allow it because the resource names are unique. So resource name is the unique character through which you will identify a resource. It can be a host name or a DNS name or FQDN. It is not required both administrators going to add the same resource and going to add the same passwords. So one administrator in a team adds a resource or a resource group and he shares it to another administrator with a full access. So the administrator one delegates the permission of his resources or resource group to an administrator two. So he is another owner of the same set of resources or resource group. Kind of two owners for the same set of devices. So that is why you provide a full access to another administrator, so delegating the permission. So these are the three access levels on how you can share the passwords. So now a normal user logs in, he's able to view the password and he can make use of it, right? So you have some privileged passwords that you don't want him to directly see in a plain text. So that is the next topic that we are going to see in today's presentation, which is access control workflow that we have in Password Manager Pro, which is a very important topic. So going back to the product, how do you configure this? So you can do it in a bulk or you can do it on an individual resource. So I'm going to do it for this particular resource. I'll say configure access control. And you have the authorized administrators that you have to select, who has to approve the request, and excluded users whom you don't want them to request for the password every time they need. and we have miscellaneous settings. So let me first save and activate. Let's come back to this section again. Go to the resources. Now I'm able to see it in a plain text. I want to do a refresh again for the settings to take effect. So I go back to the same resource. I go request for the password. I provide a reason why I need this password for. Now I'm not able to see the password, the privileged password. I have to request every time I need the password to an administrator, and only after providing the reason and the administrator approving the request, I'll be able to see the password. So the admin goes to the password access request section that we have in the admin tab and process request. You can either reject by saying a reason, or you can approve the request. So the moment he approves the request, the user will be able to make use of the password. So now he can check out and start using the password. So what are the miscellaneous settings that we have right here in the access control section is the main thing is reset password after exclusive use. So that is kind of a one-time password for the user. So the user will be able to use that password only for that session. Once he's done with the password, and when he checks in back the password will be reset by password manager from the backend. So the password cannot be used by the user even if he has copied to a notepad or any place that he has. And you can specify how long the password should be available for the user. If you want two administrators to approve the request, you can select this option. Or if you want to provide a grace time for the user, select this option. And if you want it to be checked in automatically, if it is not approved, you can specify the time right here. So you can configure all this and set up the access control workflow. Only after the request and the approval, the user password will be revealed. So when you have too many privileged passwords, this is again going to be a pain, right? So you have too many privileged passwords that you want to share it with the user and you don't want them to access it, and you have too many users requesting for the password, you don't know when to log in, how to approve it. So that is why we have a feature called auto approval in password manager Pro, where you can specify the time when the password will be automatically allowed to the user for them to use it. So you can specify if the user request for the password, it will be automatically approved, but password manager Pro never forgets to notify the user about the usage of the password. So it immediately notifies the administrator that the password is being used by the user when you turn on the automatic approval. So you don't want to get in and approve it every time. And also another easy way that you can approve the request is we have a Password Manager Pro mobile app available. You can download it on your iOS or Android device and you can approve the request on the go. So that is the access control workflow, that you put a lock on your privileged passwords that you don't want a user to directly get access to it. So that is going to be the last topic in our today's session, and the time for question and answer. Just go ahead and send your questions right now and I'll read the question and answer them. So again, the common question, will a recording of this webinar be available afterwards? Yes, of course. In a few days, we will send you the link. If it is not available, my email address is christus@manageengine.com, or maybe after a week or two, you can just drop me an email. If you don't receive it for some reason, I will send it to you. Wouldn't the preferred method be to import resources, Windows servers from Active Directory? Of course, yes, that's the preferred method that you can import, which is the preferred and the easiest way to do it. Import it from your Active Directory into Password Manager Pro. But that requires that you have to have the required ports open. Does the discovery collect the actual passwords to the account? So that's a beautiful question. I'm going to go back to the product now. And I'm going to open a resource that I've just discovered. And if you see here, it doesn't discover the password. So not only Password Manager Pro, no application has this ability to discover the passwords from the endpoints. So you have a domain admin account that you have used for the import, that you can use it to forcefully reset the password from Password Manager Pro. Or, so that's one option. That is, you can, once you have them onboarded, do a bulk password reset from Password Manager Pro using a domain admin account. So it just pushes the password, a new password on all your local accounts. If you don't want them to get updated immediately, If you know what are the local account passwords that are already with you, put them to just export all the information that you have discovered from your domain, export it to a CSV file, just fill the password part alone, rename the password part alone, re-import the CSV file back into the product so that it has the updated passwords. So those are the two options that we have for that. And the next question, are all the domain service accounts stored under the domain controller resource? Yes, all the domain service accounts are stored under the domain controller resource in Password Manager Pro. Domain service accounts, scheduled task accounts, app pool accounts, or you want to manage some domain admin account, everything should be under the domain controller resource in Password Manager Pro Taylor. So what flavors of Linux agent does it support? Is it RPM based or would you need to compile manually? So it is RPM based and it supports all flavors of Linux that we saw. If you having any problem with any type of Linux, feel free to contact the support and they'll help you out to getting it going. Can we manage passwords from AD service accounts? Yeah, of course. After you discover the service accounts, you can manage the passwords. That is, you can reset the passwords on the service accounts right from Password Manager Pro. So let me explain you what it does during a service account password reset. So initially, service accounts are part of your Active Directory that's in your domain, right? So when you do a password reset, Password Manager Pro reaches out to your domain first in your AD, resets the password there. Now, since Password Manager Pro knows where the service accounts are associated, so since it knows this service account is associated on this services, so now it knows which services are there. So Password Manager Pro goes one step further after resetting the password on the domain. It goes to the service, updates the passwords on the service, and restarts the service automatically for you. And this is again a configuration. If you don't want it to do it, you can always turn it off. And if you want to do it, you can turn it on whenever needed. Now the next question. So okay, so my database is getting full. What is the best practice to clean up the transaction logs on PMP? So I'm not sure which database you are using, and we have methods for PostgreSQL and Microsoft SQL. Just reach us out through support, and we'll help you on in clearing the transaction logs in your database. So the next question, can you have two Active Directory domains in your Password Manager Pro? Yes, of course. But the only thing is you have to have a trust relationship between the two Active Directory domains for Password Manager Pro to manage it. Or you have to consider one Active Directory where you have deploy Password Manager Pro server and use it as the main the primary one, and the second domain controller or Active Directory should be considered as a work group in Password Manager Pro. You can manage it through the agents. Okay, can you please go over when to use the Windows agent again? So it's very simple. The only thing that you have to remember is Windows agents are required only when you have this ports, that is the WMI ports blocked from Password Manager Pro server to your target computer objects. Only then you have to deploy the agents. So when you don't have, if you have a strict firewall, you deploy the agents and manage the passwords. For a custom resource type you make, how do you make it remote to able, such as RDP or SSH? So that is not in our topic today, but anyways, I'll show it how to do it for Tyler. So I go to the admin tab, and I have logged in as a password admin with very limited activities. I go back as admin, and I have a section right here called auto log on helper. So Password Manager Pro customers would know this. If you're new to Password Manager Pro, wait for the next session and we'll cover this part. So this is where you enable the custom resource types for RDP or SSH. So if it's going to be SSH, you edit, select the custom resource type, move it to the right hand side and save. And the Windows Remote Desktop, you edit, excuse me. So edit and select the custom resource type, move it to the right hand side and save. That's how easy it is. So the access control was implemented in a very, quite a bit long. It might be like in the product for about 2 to 3 years now. So I don't remember the exact version number. It should be like 7,000. So that was the actual question. What version did the access control get released? So it should be version 7,000 or so. So it is in the product for more than about 2 or 3 years now. So if you're in the older version, I suggest you to get it upgraded to the latest version. And the latest version of the product is 9701. Are imported AD credentials secure in Password Manager Pro? So I have so many questions that I will answer it through email. So let me just finish this as a last question. Are imported AD credentials secure in Password Manager Pro? So not only AD credentials, any passwords that you added in a vault, we have an additional layer of security and encryption that we have implemented in Password Manager Pro. So in the Password Manager Pro, we have implemented dual layer of encryption. First layer of encryption will be done using the application encryption key that will be provided to you in hand. You can take care of it. This encrypted content that is done using the application key will go for another layer of encryption using a database key, and only then it will get stored inside the database, and both with 256-bit AES algorithm. Not only your Active Directory passwords, don't worry, anything that you put inside the vault are secure. If anyone gets access to your database, they'll not be able to retrieve any information right out of it. So I have so many questions. I will answer all the questions and share it to all the participants today, or I will answer the questions and post it in our forum and share the link with you. You can just go through the questions and answers. So thank you guys. Thank you so much for your patience throughout this session, and look forward to see you all in the upcoming sessions that we have planned in the future. Thanks again and have a wonderful day. Take care.